everyone. Marty here from Heavy Metallurgy with a review for Fallen, Sweden's own symphonic power metal LARPers, Twilight Force. At the Heart of Wintervale was released on January 20th, 2023 on Nuclear Blast Records and is the band's fourth full-length album. Some of you may be a bit surprised that I chose to cover a release such as this, as I'm perhaps known more for an underground metal appreciation from my past exploits. But I do also have a pedigree for the symphonic arts. Bands like Rhapsody and, yes, Twilight Force find their way into my musical rotation quite often. Cheese. Delicious. The nerd in me has actually been really looking forward to checking out At the Heart of Wintervale as soon as I heard that it was coming out. And it doesn't disappoint as the album fires off with super intricate virtuoso level guitar solos and riffs. The whole procession is driven forward, ever onward, by galloping, rolling double bass, which, let's face it, it's a driving force of this style of music, hands down. The lead-off track is called Twilight Force. That song straight up surprised me with a blast beat on it. I mean, really, a blast beat? It's a rhythmic tool that rarely finds traction in this genre of power metal. The drummer to Ash even does it again later on in the album on Sky Knights of Algeria, which, again, hear it once is one thing. Hear it a second time, very surprising. And I think there's even a third instance of a blast beat on this record. So hearing this rhythmic energy when the metal kicks in, you know, it helps propel this material even further down the path. Okay, all this flows into the title track of the album, which ended up being the lead-off single and video for the album. The song is less fast, less bombastic, though no less interesting in instrumentation and composition. There's a lot of very memorable choruses and vocal lines throughout that I can see why they picked it for the single. But those memorable melodies and that always technical playing style keeps hammering the fist clenching triumph home. The vocalist, his name is Alion. This is his second album with the band, and he's a totally over-the-top powerhouse of a singer, always remaining in that higher register of his voice, so like a higher-up singing style. His performance is very operatic, the way he follows the world-building nature of the music. And it really, that type of performance suits the symphonic spirit of this band perfectly, because this whole thing really comes off as a night at the symphony, mixed with theater. It's just a very over-the-top composition, vocal-heavy album. Let's talk about the use of keyboards with Twilight Force. There's no understating the importance of that instrument in this band. It's a very integral part to symphonic metal in particular, but in this band, they take it to a whole nother dimension. It's a very important element. It acts as yet another lead instrument to sit along with the dueling guitars due to complexity in both following and empowering the guitar lines and branching off into solo-styled flourishes before returning to that endlessly classical symphonic voice. I mean, the synth work it almost feels like another singer, if that makes any sense. It's a very in-your-face element to this band. The layers on this album are mighty and endless. I mean, Joey DeMaio would be envious and scrambling for his Casio to write another epic tribute to the Vikings that puts countless millions of people asleep. So what bothers me about this album? The song Highlands of the Elder Dragon, it begins with a cinematic style narration, which undoubtedly it tries to sell you the fact that there's a story going on. So you've got a wizard talking, or, you know, something going on in a mystical, enchanted voice. It tries to bring the listener into this tale. I did not have any lyrics to check out, so I don't know what the tale is. Honestly, don't care too much. But this really isn't a new concept for the band, as past albums also featured such story building tactics to accompany their music. At the end of the day, what separates the fan from the skeptic when it comes to processing this type of music and being okay with the amount of cheese you're being fed, ultimately it's how you feel about this side of the band. How do I feel about this side of the band? I am somewhere in the middle. I can't deny the talent that's going on here. I cannot deny the obviously advanced compositional skills, thought for layering, thought for music theory, paying attention to a storyline. My problem is when Twilight Force steps away from their metal side to pay lip service to their obvious classical musical training, folk and cinematic elements like acoustic instruments, flutes, and actual spoken word pieces by characters in the story. It makes the album feel like it's dipping into Disney musical territories, and I can say this side of the band has always been a bitter pill for me to swallow. Always. There's always been something on these albums. It's kind of been like, oh, did they have to do that? But then they always bring it back around by jumping back into the metal and like, okay, here's the payoff. Here's the payoff. I mean, to further salt the wound, the track Sunlight Night has a shocking island music breakdown in it. Why does my cheese taste bad? They went all out with steel drums and a calypso feel. Really messes up the overall metal symphonic flow and power on the album. I mean, what the hell is happening here? What the hell? I can appreciate experimentation, but this influence flashed images of, elderly retirees on some beach luau sucking, booze out of a coconut through a straw as they gazed out at the sunset, and you could see like the outline of their cruise ship docked and waiting for them to arrive before taking them over to the next port of entry. Come on. It's not what you want out of a symphonic power metal record. It's a turn into left field. Granted, this is only like a minute chunk of a song, but it really kind of rocked my world regarding the overall authenticity of this album. Even though At the Heart of Wintervale quickly diverts into more expansive storytelling areas with the music about the midway point of this album, they thankfully always revert back to their metal core, which endlessly impressed me with the over-the-top instrumentation, composition, and soaring pitch vocals. The production for this album is pretty amazing, to be honest. As I mentioned, there are endless layers, keystrokes, elven and wizardly gibberish, arpeggios, you name it, it's there, and everything somehow molds seamlessly together. There was obviously a substantial recording budget going into this because it even afforded them the luxury of bringing in what sounds like a massive choir to give you that, like Notre Dame Cathedral in a choir echoing off the walls type of vibe. Really builds up the class of their more orchestral parts in some of these tracks. But other than that, the guitar tone is really good, and the way they layer everything together, you can hear the vocals. It sits right on top where you want it. Guitars, there isn't a note that is buried. The bass is just there enough to be felt. My only complaint is the thinness of the drums. They're a little mechanical sounding, but you can hear what he's doing, and it doesn't take away anything from the rest of the album. Gotta be honest, it's going to take me many more listens to fully absorb all of this. There's a lot to process here. But The Heart of Wintervale is ambitious and interesting, for sure. Remaining in line with their previous 3 albums, I'm probably going to end up buying it. Am I going to spin it as much as the first or second album? Probably not. But it's definitely a album worth inspecting and sitting with and getting more accustomed to. And that's usually when I start to really warm up to such busy and layered releases like this. And really that's the telltale sign of a truly good album, something that grows with you over time. Before I let you go, I wanted to make you aware of an album coming out in April 2023 that I have checked out a track from. Though it's nowhere near as bombastic or symphonic as Twilight Force, Philadelphia's Blazon Rite have dropped a track from their forthcoming Wild Rites and Ancient Songs album on Gates of Hell Records. These guys are more in the traditional or epic metal vein due to endlessly catchy riffs and a mid-range vocal style. Blazon Rite are solid songwriters, and I'm looking forward to hearing the full album when it drops. I have their last album. I've listened to it several times. It's definitely a keeper. It's going to be interesting to hear where they take it moving forward. And that's it. Thanks for joining me on this quest. I'm sure your fake elf ears and grandma-crafted medieval tunic are making you a bit sweaty. Give Twilight Force a listen if symphonic power metal is your jam, and be sure to check back next Monday for another album review courtesy of Heavy Metallurgy. You want some? It's really good cheese, and it's organic. Have some, won't you?